Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for our first stand-up of this Get Lit show. He is a graduate of Lit Stand-Up 101 program and is now a comic with our theater. Please give it up for Ivi!
Thank you guys. Before you guys get too excited though, I will say they don't put me up here to tell jokes. The city of DC actually hires me to stand places and gentrify them. So, this is my job here. I can't really defend any of this. And as you'll realize in the next 10 to 15 minutes, all of you, men and women combined, will have beards. You'll join me on stage for a drum circle. Ticket prices are going to get jacked up too, so hope you guys buy them online. Also, every single one of you now automatically has membership to SoulCycle, Hot Yoga, B-Yoga, Go Yoga, Yoda Yoga. That's just yoga in a room full of nerds. So get used to that. A lot of perks with gentrification, I will say. I think like any good hipster, and I self-embrace the title, you know, I understand it and I know what comes with it. Everything about my life is completely ironic. I'm a walking lie. I like to wear, I spend a lot of my paychecks on watches. I get a lot of digital watches, different colors. I've never shown up on time to anything in my entire life, so it's clearly helping. I wear glasses too. I have glasses in a whole bunch of different colors. I had LASIK like 3 years ago. Completely unnecessary. You guys will notice a lot of hipsters do the work boots with the rolled up jeans. It's a look, it's in now. I couldn't tell you the last time I did any form of manual labor. It's just a look, really. So I don't even get my own groceries. I use a service called Peapod, a giant that brings my groceries to my doorstep. And I think it's such a cutesy name for the service. I think they should just call it Good God. So it's come to this. But there really is nothing like the feeling of opening your door, wearing a robe, and having an 18-year-old pimple-faced kid hand you a bag of groceries with almond milk and 4 types of Frito-Lay products. That's my own personal rock bottom. I think there's a realization for a lot of folks when they have, you know, most of my life I've been battling weight issues. You know, I lose weight, I gain it, lose weight, depending on the stresses in my life. I think one moment that really was sort of a wake-up call for me was I was getting out of bed, and just the way I rolled out, my shoulder like gurgled. Like it wasn't aching or croaking, it was like a distinctive digestive noise. And I realized, my God, I'm working my gut so hard that it's outsourcing work to other parts of my body. So that's how that goes. If you gain weight, I don't know why, like, there was a period of years ago where I gained some weight and I just realized I do like this a lot. Like I'm not in line to buy food, but I'm just like doing this. I'm buying stamps at a post office. And I just ate, but I'm still just like doing that. It is important to have body goals. I always say, you know, whatever weight you are, skinny, fat, whatever you do, have a goal, have something that makes you happy. For me, it's somewhere between like Seth Rogen like losing weight for a role and Russell Crowe putting some on. There's a beautiful medium there where people know he's trying, but he doesn't have to try too hard. That's my own personal goal. I think it's important. Honestly, though, the beautiful thing about the U.S. here is just they make it easy to gain weight. Honestly, one thing I found is there's no reason at all whatsoever to know your size at a certain point. You just look for keywords. I always keep my eyes out for things like comfort. Stretch. My favorite's always been relaxed fit. You're gaining weight, man? No, dude, I'm just having a good time, relaxing. Shut up, have a croissant. Favorite term out there for sure. I am doing my best. I'm putting in some work at a gym over the next few weeks. My financial services firm is actually auditing Planet Fitness, so we'll be doing all the work there. My name is a little weird for those of you who heard it beginning, so it's Ivi. My parents named me after a very famous French actor from the 60s and 70s. His name was Yves Montand. I think because of that, they always sort of kind of hoped that I would catch the acting bug. I don't think chlamydia counts, but hope they're proud. I was born actually outside the U.S., so my family's from a country called Albania. There's no reason you guys should know where that is, and as Americans, I'm confident you don't. I don't know, it's in the Balkans. I don't know how to describe the Balkans and Albania in that region to folks that have never been there. I did find, there's a quick story I always tell people to kind of give them a picture of the area. Mother Teresa was probably the most famous person of Albanian descent that you guys are probably aware of. Mother Teresa loved the Balkans and Albania so much that as soon as she could, she moved to a rural, impoverished, disease-ridden village in India. And she said, I think I'm good here. It's totally fine. Yeah, I'm not coming back. They need me, seriously. She chose 80 years of loose bowel movements over us, so I hope that paints a little picture of what Albania is like. I think more broadly, Americans were exposed to Albanians in the movie Taken with Liam Neeson. That's the one where his daughter is kidnapped by a crime syndicate and he works to try to get her back. In that movie, my people are the ones doing the taking. Then he basically goes on to kill a third of my country's population in about 90 minutes, so who's the real victim here? Unfortunately, there is this sort of trope that Albanians are kind of involved in crime. It's true in real life and in the movies. I think what sucks even more than that, though, is that we're never the ones in charge. We're always like the henchmen, always kidnapping the bridesmaid and never the bride. It's always true, though. You'll see a room full of like Italians and Russians, and they're making the plans, and we're outside that room with an earpiece and a clipboard. We're essentially the bouncers of the criminal underworld. So. Sorry, you're not on the list. You can't do evil today. Not in those shoes. Come back with some evil chicks, then we'll talk. There was, I'll say that there's some difficulties growing up with, my parents. I was born there when I was very young. My parents lived through sort of a difficult period in Albania where there was a dictator. And so I'll never really understand any of the things they experienced. The challenges that I grew up with will never really compare to what they had to deal with. And I can totally empathize with that, totally understand, get it, but that made like being petty as a kid really hard. So I mean, it's totally impossible to win an argument in a situation like that. So I go to my mom, Mom, I really wish you guys wouldn't take my PlayStation away. I wish they didn't take your grandfather away. Dad, these chores are torture, man. You know what's torture? Real torture is torture, actual torture. You ever been waterboarded? No? Come here. We had a pop quiz. We had a pop execution one time. I'll say, those of us that were born abroad and came here to the States, our parents will never know English as well as we do, so there's this feeling of sort of wanting to protect them. And still to this day, I always kind of, my parents are almost like my children, to be honest. I know it seems weird, but I always want to protect them from the terrible things here in society. And I realize there's really a lot of connections between newborn infants and fresh off the boat immigrants. You barely understand what any of them are saying. They were recently forcibly removed from their previous location. And a lot of times I feel like people in rural conservative communities would be a lot happier advocating for them if they would just go back where they came from. Those are the struggles. I did get, one of the things, you grow up, we weren't that wealthy growing up. My dad worked odd jobs, and so did my mom. So a lot of my clothes kind of growing up were just hand-me-downs, things that my uncles or grandparents had, or my dad had, would just kind of come down to me. And that sucked when I was growing up, but I just realized I was getting ready to be cool for like the modern era. So like now everything I own is just hipster culture has made it awesome. I have this one jacket that my uncle actually used to have, and this thing is tattered and worn down. It's handed down to my family. It's got stains on it. There's like bullet holes in the back. He basically escaped the genocide in this thing. It's dry clean only, but it's already been ethically cleansed, so it's fine. But I wear this thing sometimes. I love wearing it out, and now I get guys in man buns stopping me and saying, "Hey man, where'd you get that? Some swap meat, Goodwill?" And I'm like, "Sir, I am offended. It's the War Crimes collection at JCPenney." I think a lot of the way I sort of like learned the English language growing up was just watching movies. So pop culture and media has always been a big thing in my life. I do consider myself a bit of a cinephile. I hate that word. It kind of makes it sound like I'm going to diddle a classic film. I just like to watch. I do empathize with people that are in Hollywood that are trying to make it. You know, I do have some friends out in LA now, and then, you know, they're doing commercials, they're doing whatever they can basically just sort of get out there. And one thing I think we don't realize, being in kind of the real world away from media, is that we have the luxury of wiping our resumes, whereas IMDb is like forever. Everything they do from now on, whether it's a herpes advertisement or a role where they just kill a bunch of people, it's going to be on their page for the rest of their lives. Like I, for one, for 4 years of my life, I was a Subway sandwich artist. That was one of my first jobs. That is no longer on my resume. I also think it's appropriate that corporate called us artists. We never got a lunch break, so we were all starving all the time. And, all of us had rampant thoughts of suicide. So, term artist really fits there. But it's, you can't really wipe your resume when you're in Hollywood. Whatever you do, any job, you can't really go back and expunge it. The internet's going to be there forever. Which makes, you know, I always wonder, what's the next role with a casting director? That conversation for somebody who had a really distinctive, weird role, what's that conversation like? Like if you're the woman who was like the middle of the human centipede, next. For those of you that have the self-respect to just completely not watch a movie like that, I don't know how to describe it. Like if Quentin Tarantino directed A Bug's Life, you know, he's a master of playing with things at begin and end. Essentially, the gross, quick summary is a weird German doctor tries to connect 3 human beings, anus to mouth, for. And honestly, I watched the whole movie. I have no idea why he was doing it. There's no explanation. Leave it to a movie like that to not give me closure, but there's no reason. There's absolutely no reason to do that. But it's just, there's this weird thing there of just, the next conversation for that woman when she's in a casting director meet, you know, how does that go? How does she explain the role? When she responds to, you know, hey, do you do your own stunts? You know, people on set can be kind of harsh. Are you okay taking crap from people? It's tough, you know, that's going to be with her for the rest of their life. I will say one thing to close things out here. I do a lot of research for some of these things. So, you know, obviously I'm researching the human centipede. The wonderful actress who played the middle of the human centipede, one by the name of Ashley C. Williams, she has a Wikipedia page. The most recent main role that she had, and I swear to God I'm not making this up, was a made-for-TV film called Albanian Gangster. That was her most recent role. And for like a hot second I was like, man, that's so cool. What is the coincidence that? I thought that was really cool. And then I realized, man, we can't even get like the front of the human centipede to be like the middle of the human centipede for all our stuff. That's all I got today. I appreciate your time, guys. Thank you so much.